The court is entirely independent. Its independence is guaranteed in the statutes that set it up. Its independence has been publicly supported by the Kazakh government, including the president. It was an opportunity to secure something for Kazakhstan which would enhance investor confidence, but also powerfully send a message about the rule of law. Technology is at the heart of what we do. We have a project in the court which is being developed by a Kazakh company to use AI to provide simultaneous translation between English and Russian. It makes the whole process flow more smoothly, and it also reduces cost in the end.
Welcome to the Astana Times YouTube channel. Today we have the honor to chat with Chief Justice of the AIFC Court, Lord Burnett. Can you tell us where you were born, and was pursuing law ever been on your radar when you were a child?
Well, I was born in Sussex in England, on the south coast of England. And I think I began to consider being a lawyer in my teenage years. I remember vividly an evening when I sat down with my parents around the kitchen table, and I'm sure we've all done it. It's a discussion, what are you going to do? And for various reasons, a number of people thought I might turn out to be quite a good lawyer. And it was important to begin to decide because it would determine what I studied at university. And I was about to do the entrance exam for Oxford, and so I had to make my mind up. And I was attracted by the law. I was attracted by arguing cases in public. And so by the time I was 17, I had settled upon a career in the law if it turned out okay.
Mm-hmm. You've had a distinguished career spanning over decades. And I would like to ask you about your involvement in landmark inquiries like those in the deaths of Princess Diana and Dodi Fayed. In your opinion, how have these high-profile cases influenced public perception of the judiciary and the judiciary place in enhancing public trust?
Well, I was very fortunate as a relatively young barrister, a lawyer, to become involved in a large public inquiry about a fire in which many people died in an underground station in London. And that was the first one that I did. And after that, I did a number of public inquiries. And as you've indicated, I was involved in the inquiry into the death of Princess Diana and Dodi Al-Fayed. That was actually my last case as a barrister before I became a judge of the High Court in England. What's quite interesting about big public inquiries in the United Kingdom is that almost always judges or retired judges are asked to conduct them. So at the moment, there's a big public inquiry into the response of the UK government to the COVID epidemic, and a very senior retired judge is dealing with that. Only the day before yesterday, a public inquiry into a terrible tragedy when a block of flats caught fire in London published its findings. That was conducted by a senior retired judge. And a month or three ago, another inquiry finished into a scandal involving infected blood. This is blood transfusions given to people who were haemophiliacs, which had come from America in the 80s and gave them AIDS or hepatitis. So the interesting thing is that judges are always asked to do these inquiries. And it's because in the UK, at least, there is very high public confidence and trust in our senior judges. Polling suggests that judges are amongst the most trusted group of people in society. And I think that comes from a well-known understanding that judges are independent, fiercely independent, impartial, and they've also, before being appointed judges, practiced as successful lawyers for many years, and so are seen as very competent. And so broadly, not always, but broadly, the judiciary in the UK has a high level of public confidence.
Returning to your prolific career, is there a pivotal moment or case that significantly shaped your approach to justice and law?
I'm not sure that there is a particular case that shaped that particular or those particular features. When I was starting off as a lawyer, I undertook a wide range of cases, lots of different types of case, which brought me into contact with all sorts of different organizations, commercial organizations, public bodies, but also individuals. And I learned very early on that for individuals concerned in legal cases, the case is often the most important, the most difficult, the most worrying thing they've ever had to deal with. And I think I learned that even though as a professional, and it's no doubt true as a professional journalist, you get used to what you're doing, it becomes fairly commonplace. For the people you're dealing with, whether they're individuals or organizations, it is a really important and one-off special event. And that, I think, led me to understand that it didn't matter what I was doing, I always had to give it my best, the best shot I could. And then there were one or two cases. The first big inquiry I did, which I've already mentioned, into the fire at King's Cross Underground Station, taught me the absolute need to look into the detail carefully. It was very complicated and enormously hard work to get to understand how the fire had occurred. And I had a series of cases in the course of my career as a lawyer, which were high profile and difficult. And each of them, I think, led me to understand the need to work carefully on a case, to sort of unpick it, to understand what really mattered and what didn't matter, and to pursue it to the best of one's ability. And the same is true as a judge.
When the tragedy happened with Princess Diana and the whole thing, it was covered all over the world by the media and by the British media,
yes,
extensively. Do you think it has any effect on public trust, the way judges should approach this case? Because it's, we in Kazakhstan have very recently, I think it was for the first time when we actually had a hearing broadcast online, and I think the entire country was glued
I know
to their
about
screens,
that case, yes,
to their computers. So for us, it was something new. For Britain and for the United States, for example, it's not a new thing. I think it affects in some way, maybe. I'm not sure. I'm just asking you. Maybe you could share your point of view. The judges, the way they approach the case,
Well, being involved in something as high profile, attaching world attention as the Diana inquiry, puts those involved under a great deal of pressure. My role in that case was as counsel to the inquiry, so it was my role to direct the collection of all the evidence, to deploy it in the inquiry with the judge who presided to decide the order in which we would do things. And we were well aware that there were a large number of conspiracy theories floating around, many conspiracy theories, all conflicting with each other. And so one of the first decisions that had to be made was the extent to which we would explore all of the conspiracy theories. And in the end, we decided to explore them all. We were very conscious that day after day, what we were doing in a large courtroom in the Royal Courts of Justice in London was being scrutinized across the world. And I think it would be a very unusual person who wouldn't feel a weight that results from that. But it comes back to one of my earlier answers. Work hard, be prepared, do the preparation to enable you to do the case properly, and then things should turn out okay. But it also, I think, demonstrates a need in judges in particular, but also in lawyers, to be careful about the language you use, be careful what you say, and try to avoid being sensational.
Mm-hmm. Let's move to the AIFC. Mm-hmm. Before I will ask you a question, I wanted to ask you, did you have any connection with Kazakhstan before you were appointed? Maybe you had some, friends, or you've met someone, I don't know, you're just your impression about Kazakhstan before you became Chief Justice.
Well, as you know, the AIFC Court and the Arbitration Centre was set up by Lord Woolf, who was Lord Chief Justice in London. He was Lord Chief Justice between 2000 and 2005. I was still a barrister then, but I appeared in front of him on many occasions. And after I became a judge, we got to know each other quite well. And I became Lord Chief Justice, as it happens, when he was in the process of working here to establish the court, which we see behind us. And so he and I had talked about it on a number of occasions. And in particular, Lord Woolf's plan was to secure the services of a number of recently retired senior judges from London to act as judges in the AIFC Court. And he talked to me about that, and I was involved a little bit in that. So I knew about this court and was interested in the project because I knew Lord Woolf believed passionately that it was an opportunity to secure something for Kazakhstan, which would enhance investor confidence, but also powerfully send a message about the rule of law. And so his successor was Lord Mance, and the time came for Lord Mance to retire, as it happens, at about the same time as I was retiring from the role of Lord Chief Justice in London. And so when it was suggested to me that I might take over the role from Lord Mance, I had no hesitation in doing so. Like many people who live in Western Europe and in the US, I didn't know as much about Kazakhstan as I should have done, to be perfectly honest. This region is not well understood in Western Europe and the US. And so it's been a fascinating experience for me to learn more about the region and Kazakhstan. I do take the trouble to look at press about Kazakhstan. I try to keep up to date with what's going on here. And I've only been the Chief Justice here for just under a year, and so I have a lot yet to learn. But it's the most fascinating place, and I've enjoyed my 4 visits as I've had now. I shall be back at the end of October, and I hope to be coming at least 3 or 4 times a year.
Mm-hmm. Well, when you came on board, your vision, how do you see AIFC Court contributing to the stability and predictability for foreign investors who are coming to Kazakhstan? And how do you think it doesn't have any effect on the overall legal environment in the country?
Well, the reason the court was set up and the Arbitration Centre as part of the AIFC was a determined attempt by the government of Kazakhstan to enhance the attraction of Kazakhstan, particularly to foreign investors. We've had in these buildings, as you know, over the last couple of days, the Astana Financial Week. And so there have been a lot of investors in town. And many of them have been explaining how important it is to invest in a system which has a legal environment they understand. Now, the whole idea of the court and the arbitration centre was to provide legal certainty, and particularly with the court, to provide a system of law that is based upon the common law of England, which is the foundation of commercial law the world over. And so international companies in particular understand it, and it helps make them feel comfortable in investing in Kazakhstan. But critically, the court is entirely independent. Its independence is guaranteed in the statutes that set it up. Its independence has been publicly supported by the Kazakh government, including the president. And the judges are fiercely independent and all have a significant international reputation in commercial law and are known to have been acting independently in their careers throughout their careers. And so it fosters confidence. And I think in that respect, it's an important contributor to the legal environment in Kazakhstan.
Drawing from your experience, what practices and principles do you plan to implement or add to the way it has been working since 2017?
Well, the court is underpinned by rules which are loosely modelled on rules that exist in London. They've been designed to be relatively straightforward and also quite flexible. So that is something that I want to continue to encourage, because it enables people to come to our court, and people don't like going to court, so you want to make it simple for them. And the idea is that our procedures are straightforward, people don't get tied up in knots, the cases can be dealt with quickly, and so they can be dealt with cost effectively by those who are involved in them. And also the rules import a wide range of common law concepts from London, which are very familiar to the commercial world, and those too are incorporated into what we're doing. So we want to keep things simple, straightforward, quick, and cost-effective.
Mm-hmm. When I've been yesterday here for the Astana Finance Days, the big topic I felt was AI and financial systems, how it's going to impact the whole thing. Should we be worried? Do you use AI in AIFC Court and IAC?
Well, technology is at the heart of what we do. And so, for example, in the court, all of the documentation is available online to the judges, to the parties, in the arbitration centre, to the arbitrators, and so on. And that too is designed to make everything straightforward and simple. We have a project in the court, which is being developed by a Kazakh company, to use AI to provide simultaneous translation between English and Russian. I'm afraid not yet Kazakh. We're doing English and Russian first. And this, I think, is a really significant development. And I'm particularly pleased to be involved in it. And if I can digress, I'll tell you why. 7 years ago, when I became Lord Chief Justice in London, I made a speech about technology and the law. And one of the things I said was that within a few years, we will no longer need court interpreters because it will all be done by machine. And at the time, I got a lot of bad press from the associations that look after interpreters in the UK. And in our courts, we need interpreters a lot. And they said I was quite wrong and that never would AI be able to substitute for an interpreter. But we're nearly there. And again, it makes it easier and it makes the whole process flow more smoothly, and it also reduces cost in the end. So those are technical things. And as you appreciate, we also conduct a large number of hearings remotely if it's more convenient for the parties and there's no reason that the judge needs them physically in the building.
Mm-hmm. So we can say that you are on the side of AI. There was a guy yesterday I talked to, and he said, we should not be afraid of artificial intelligence. We should be wary of natural idiocy.
Well,
That's what he said.
I strongly believe that AI should be the servant and not
I agree with you.
The master. And I know people are concerned about the use of AI in inappropriate circumstances, which will make it the master of us. But AI is a term which can be much misunderstood. It's a development of computer analysis that has been going on for a very long time. It's moved a long way in the last 2 years in particular, and I don't think any of us would be sensible to try to predict where it'll be in 2, 5 or 10 years' time. But properly applied in all sorts of environments, including the law and including the courts, it can provide enormous benefit. And to the extent that it can, and that the cost of it is reasonable, in the Court and Arbitration Centre, I'm sure we will explore using it. But this automatic translation system is a very good example of where it can be helpful, and there are no dangers.
You know, when you take into consideration AI and the way legal environment changes, how we should prepare new professionals in your career that you've been so successful for many decades, in your opinion?
Well, first of all, can I say that the court, along with the arbitration centre, are not just here to deal with cases that come through the door. We do see it as part of our role to provide training and assistance to lawyers in Kazakhstan and more broadly in the region. And I think so far, training has been provided to around 3,500 people in Kazakhstan and the region to help to enable them to appear in cases that come to the court and the arbitration centre. And another aspect of the work that we do as the judges of the court, and Mr. Campbell Holt as the chief executive and registrar does a great deal of, is to engage with universities. It's been a great pleasure for me to visit universities and talk to the students and engage fairly fully with them. And I'm really confident that the legal profession in Kazakhstan is one that has a very bright future. Many of your students are quite remarkable, and it's important that they are trained in the law of Kazakhstan, obviously, but to the extent that they hope to practice in the commercial field in particular, which engages with the outside world, and that for Kazakhstan is the outside world in the region, in the Far East, in Eurasia, as well as China, Western Europe and America. They will need to understand the broader reaches of international law and commercial law. And that I think they're doing.
And my last question. Your career has significantly progressed from being called to the bar to becoming a life peer and eventually serving as the Lord Chief Justice. Reflecting on this journey, what advice would you offer to young up-and-coming professionals?
I think my starting point would be to study hard and work hard. And then if you find yourself fortunate enough to have a place as a lawyer, to undertake work that you enjoy. I think the reality for most of us is that if you enjoy what you're doing, you do it well. If you don't really enjoy it, you won't do it very well. So focus on areas of law that interest you and that you enjoy. I think there's a tendency, certainly in the jurisdiction I originate from, for some young lawyers to be more interested in earning a good living than doing the sort of work they enjoy. And I'm not convinced that's a good idea. The second thing is that when you start working as a young lawyer, my advice would be to work on a broad range of cases, broad area of law. Don't specialize too soon, because if you have a broad practice, then you have a much better overview of the legal environment and the legal system that you're working in. I've said already, when you were asking me about some of the cases I was involved in many years ago, about the importance of hard work and application. And there's no doubt that if you're to succeed as a lawyer, you have to be capable of hard work and occasionally put in some very long hours. But I would strongly advise people always not to overwork. It's a problem amongst lawyers. It's not only lawyers, but there is a problem with people overworking. And if you overwork, you can become overtired. And if you become overtired, you don't perform well. And if you overwork, you can also find yourself burning out. So work hard, but remember that there is more to life than work. And you must enjoy what you do outside work as well.
Thank you very much for this interview.
It's been my pleasure. Very nice to see you.
Thank you.